Thank you for listening to the Spectrum Lounge. If you enjoy this podcast, please support us at patreon.com/filmfatale_NYC. And be sure to subscribe to the Spectrum Lounge. You can find us on SoundCloud, Apple, Spotify, and YouTube.
There was an idea. Stark knows this. Called the Avengers Initiative. The idea was to bring together a group of remarkable people. See if they could become something more. See if they could work together when we needed them to fight the battles that we never could. Phil Coulson died still believing in that idea. In heroes. Well, it's an old-fashioned notion.
Welcome to the Spectrum Lounge podcast, where we discuss creators of color disrupting the game in TV, film, and pop culture. I am your host, Rebecca Theodore-Vachon, and on this episode, I'm joined by Robert Young as we review episode 3 of the Marvel animated series What If, titled What If the World Lost Its Mightiest Heroes? Hey, Robert.
Hello.
Hi. So you see, I changed the intro a little.
I like that. I like to change it up.
Thank you. Yes, because I'm like, listen, we're committed. We are committed to this series. And I'm just like, number one, I love the intro music. And I was just like, I got to incorporate it into our recap somehow. So, yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. The intro music is really good. Well, the entire intro, the animation and everything is just top notch.
Oh, absolutely. As far as that audio clip, that was from the Avengers with the mighty and talented Samuel L. Jackson with it's the infamous Avengers Initiative speech, which is pretty much a recurring theme of this week's episode. So we'll start with you, Robert. What did you think of episode 3?
This, like the way you changed up the intro here, they really changed this up, this episode. And I think it's going to be one of those episodes that some people like a lot and some people don't, because this is kind of way off the beaten path and you're killing off some of their favorite characters. So I feel like some people are going to react, in the extremes to this. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the mystery of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoyed seeing some people that I haven't seen in a while, like Coulson in particular.
Yes. This episode, you know what? I'll be honest with you. When I watched it twice. The first time I watched it, I was like, "Oh, this is cute." Mm-hmm. I was like, "I don't think it's as good as the first two, right? The Captain Carter episode and the T'Challa Star-Lord episode." But then I revisited it again before our recording just to take some notes. And I was like, oh no, okay. And it's exactly what you said. Like every episode is sort of they're playing with different genres, you know what I mean? And different themes. And so this one, like you said, it is very much, funny enough, one of the actors of the Avengers is Chris Evans, who is in one of the best movies of 2019, Knives Out, right? So it definitely kind of had like that Agatha Christie, like, 10 little Indians and then there were none, right? Like sort of that murder mystery vibe. And like you said, like they were killing off our faves. Like bloop, right over there. I was like, oh my God. And one of the things, I mean, we can put our minds together. What I liked about this episode, like, whereas the first 2 episodes, the first one was a reimagining of First Avenger, right? The second one was a reimagining of Guardians of the Galaxy mixed in with some Black Panther, right?
Right.
This episode kind of borrowed from so many other MCU movies, which I really liked. So when I watched it the second time, I was kind of like, oh, this is from this movie and this from that movie. So I guess we can kind of figure out like which movie. So I know we definitely started off with Iron Man 2,
Yeah.
where we see Tony, being drunk and kind of sitting on top of that diner with the donut. And let's see. Incredible Hulk, who is it?
The Abomination one.
Yes, not the one with Eric Bana. Who's the other one? Ed Norton. That one, right?
Yep.
And then it was also mixed in with Thor, a little bit of Ant-Man. I was just like, oh, okay. I kind of like the way that they brought these different MCU movies together to tell one cohesive.
And a little bit of like the first Avengers movie,
Absolutely.
kind of with the Loki part of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was just like, oh, okay, I see what y'all are doing here. So this one, for all intensive purposes, is basically a reimagining. While it's definitely borrowing from all these other MCU movies, it is within the feeling of the Avengers movie when Samuel Jackson is, basically launching his Avengers initiative. But the problem is that all the people that he's trying to recruit to create the Avengers are getting picked off one by one. So he turns to, I guess you could say, while it is a Nick Fury centric episode, it's also very much a Natasha Romanoff story too.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of felt like the Winter Soldier, but instead of Natasha and Steve, it's Natasha and Sam Jackson.
Ooh, yeah.
It kind of felt like that. It's almost like a 60-40, Nick Fury, Black Widow.
Yes. Yeah.
And it was kind of cool to see them interact more. They don't interact a whole lot in the movies. They've had some, but not like this.
I agree with that because, I mean, especially if you read the comic, like Nick and Natasha have a very unique relationship because of the fact that he basically saw the good in her, right? Like she was this assassin for hire, and he was like, and he said this in the beginning of the episode, he was like, I like to swing. Big, right?
Swing big.
Yeah, so what's cool, I'll just say this real quick and we'll get into the nitty-gritty of the episode, is that it seemed to me, while like I said, it's very much a Black Widow with Natasha Romanoff storyline, it seems to me, at least for me, with Black Widow, the Black Widow movie, and also this episode, I feel like the people at Marvel, or let me be more specific, the MCU, over on the movie side, it seems to me that the movie side, I think they're now just realizing the value of Black Widow and Natasha Romanoff, right? Because
I agree.
You know what I mean? Because I feel like, especially when we, her introduction in Iron Man 2 was so sexualized and so objectified. It was ridiculous. Great, you know what I mean? It was great to see her, but it was like she was kind of like, even though she was undercover, she was playing like the sexy secretary, and you know what I mean? And yeah, and I felt like the first movie that took Natasha seriously, or Black Widow, and used her to the best of their ability was Winter Soldier. That's when I was like, yes, okay, now you guys know how to write for Natasha, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, like, has seen the Black Widow movie and then seeing this episode. And so it's a reversal where Natasha is basically like, she's basically Nick's confidant, right? Like she's helping him put the Avengers together, which is quite interesting because in the live action version, I think what happened was he recruited Tony first, and then Tony was helping him recruit the other Avengers, right? Because that's what we saw, right? And so I was like, okay, this is, and I think it makes sense because when we're introduced to Tony in this version of What If, Natasha's like, this is the guy you want to recruit? Like this irresponsible, drunk billionaire? You know what I mean? And it was like, she's got a point. I mean, like, Natasha was way more qualified than Tony in a lot of ways. So I feel like this episode honored that, at least that reality. Yeah. So what did you think as far as like their depiction of Natasha in this episode?
Yeah, it felt a whole lot like the Winter Soldier Steve relationship. Like
Mm-hmm.
it was a lot more about him being supported by her,
Right.
to kind of track everybody down,
Mm-hmm.
and she's the only one he can really trust. So
Yes.
yeah, I
Yes.
enjoyed that.
I agree with that. I agree with that. Yeah, I mean, because Winter Soldier several things. There were several things, but it was really the building of Steve's. One of the major storylines was the building of Steve and Natasha's friendship and their
Yes.
trust with each other, which would carry over into Civil War. So I was really glad that they took the time to do that. And funny enough, just real quick before we go back to the episode recap, that's something we're seeing consistently with Steve, right? Like how he has like these relationship with women, whether they're platonic or romantic. Like he has a real respect for very strong and powerful women, which I
Yeah,
really
he
like.
he really invests in his relationship, no matter
Mm-hmm.
what they are. He doesn't have to be romantically involved with the woman to be
Right.
invested in the relationship.
Right. But at the same time, it was like after Civil War, he did a couple of women dirty, right? Like in the live action, like Sharon Carter was left in the wind, right? And
Yeah.
so
Uh
she's got some salt concerning that,
huh.
and Natasha too, because when we see Black Widow, she's the Black Widow live action movie, she's on her own. In the beginning of the movie when General Ross, supposedly has her cornered, he basically taunts her with that. He's like, "Oh, you did all of that to help Steve and Bucky, back in Civil War, and look, you're alone." So
Yeah.
I was just like,
Yeah.
ooh, but that's how she can take care of herself. So, yeah, I think upon watching it again, I liked it. I liked how they were, converging all these different converging the different movies and kind of changing the trajectories and the time, the trajectories of some of these characters. And it's kind of a dark episode too, because it's like I don't
It's
want
a
to see,
really dark episode.
yeah, I don't want to see Thor die. that's
Hmm.
that's rough. You know what I mean? So yeah, so we see that it's like it's basically like Iron Man 2 where uh, Fury meets Tony at the diner. You see them sitting, and clearly Tony is, nursing a headache. And I love that line that he says to him. He's like, I don't want to join your Superboy band." And I was just like, okay, yeah. And by the way, the I believe it was a different actor who voiced Tony. His name is we have some returning faves and some new actors. I was just gonna read through the voice actors real quick. So Sam Jackson is back as Nick Fury. That is not Scarlett Johansson voicing uh, Black Widow Natasha Romanoff. It is actually the actress Lake Bell, who I like
Yep.
a lot. She voices that fat cat in Pets.
She voices Poison Ivy too, doesn't she?
Oh wow, yes, that's her. So I was like, all right. Now she sounded like Scarlett, because Scarlett has a very gravelly voice. She doesn't
Uh
have that
huh.
traditional whatever. I thought Lake was good. The delivery was a little flat to me because Scarlett has a little bit of a I don't know. It was there, like she was hitting it, but it was missing a little something. But I think she did a good job.
Yeah.
It wasn't so much where it was like, who is this person pretending to be, Black Widow? But yeah, but I thought she did a good job. And then we know that who else? Jeremy
Tom
Renner,
Hiddleston was back.
of course. Like you gonna really try to replace Tom Hiddleston as Loki? Like, come on now. And yeah, Agent Coulson, Clark Gregg comes back to voice him,
Yeah, that
which
was
is
so
cool.
great to hear him again.
Yeah, and Mark Ruffalo is back as Bruce Banner, the Hulk, which is yay, cool. And
Hmm.
Michael Douglas
That
came back.
surprised me. I was like, "What?"
Surprise!
Hmm.
But yes, back to it. So basically, they're at the diner, like we saw very much in Iron Man 2. Tony is cranky, he's hungover, and while Nick is talking him up, you see Natasha stick a needle in his neck, and she was like, "This is actually going to help you," because remember in Iron Man 2, he was uh, going through some physical issues because of the implant in his heart.
Yep.
But instead of helping him, Tony Stark drops dead. And they think that Natasha did it because she administered the needle. And so she gets arrested, and Nick Fury basically helps her. You know, he was like, it was so funny. They're walking her to the back of the truck with all of these guards, and he was like, "You know how to get out of these things, right?" And she was like, because he knows that no matter how many guards they put back there, Natasha's going to take care of herself. So he gives her the same syringe, and he was like, I need someone on the outside that I can trust, and I need you to find out how Tony is murdered. So that's day one, and then day two is a recreation of Thor, correct? Right? That's from the Thor movie?
Yeah. Can we go back to day one real quick, though?
Sure.
That's probably my favorite scene in the whole episode is basically her escape from the van is like Steve's escape from the elevator. It's basically the elevator scene in the back of a van.
Yes, when everybody, I was expecting her to say, "Would anyone like to get out first?" But that's okay. Yeah. They don't need to be that on the nose. Good call. Great call.
Great call. I love that scene.
Oh man, she effed them up. I was like, yeah. This is where I'm like, yeah, didn't use Black Widow to when she was alive, you know, because she was wrecking shit. I was like, wow, okay.
That was super good.
That was cool. And so of course she gets out, she escapes, and then we go to the next day, Tuesday, and it's like the recreation from the Thor movie, where they have found Mjolnir in the desert, and of course S.H.I.E.L.D. has basically built this whole thing around it because they're trying to figure out what it's from. Hawkeye comes into the picture, and he and Nick are talking very much like the Thor movie with some twists. So then we see Thor come in to reclaim the hammer. And it was so funny because, like, I love how they were able to, like, crack on their own characters. Like, Coulson is like, oh, there's this guy who just busted, and Nick is like, well, what does he look like? And Coulson was like, he's Caucasian, male, and he's got really beautiful hair. He was like, he's gorgeous. I was like, which is so funny. And then you actually see Thor do a hair flip. That took me out, I swear. Because that was one of the running jokes in the MCU that Thor was the pretty boy, right?
Yeah, definitely during that phase one, then the Avengers.
Right, because remember, Tony's nickname for him was Point Break.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So I was like, all right, I see what y'all were doing there. And so, we see Thor, he sees Mjolnir, the same way, and then, again, like the recreation, Hawkeye is above, ready to shoot him. You know, Nick is like, let's wait, let's see what happens. And just as Thor is about to pick up Mjolnir, the arrow flies. And Hawkeye looks shocked because clearly we can see that he did not do that on purpose. Mm-hmm. And the arrow goes right through Thor's heart and kills him dead on the spot. Bloop. I was like, wow, okay. Yeah. And then Hawkeye is taken into custody under surveillance. And then he drops dead. When Nick goes to question him, he just drops dead. And so now that's 3 dead Avengers. And I'm like, ooh. This is getting really dark. I don't feel comfortable with this episode. But yeah, it was just like, and you're just trying to figure out who is. To be honest with you, I had a couple of theories and they were all wrong. Actually, I didn't have any theories.
Yeah,
I was just like,
I wasn't even on the right track until the point where Black Widow visits Betty Ross.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so you can take the lead with that scene. So tell us about that one. So that's day 3, right?
Yeah, day 3 on Wednesday. Yeah, she goes to some college in Virginia. I guess that's where Betty Ross's faculty or whatever. But she kind of tracks her down and wants her to take a look at the syringe that Nick Fury gave her when she escaped. So Betty Ross can see, what was potentially in it.
Right.
And when she checks it out, she tells her that the agent inside the syringe never was actually released, and that a small nano thing was shot into him. And that's when I was finally like, okay, this sounds very Pimmy. Yeah, I said, this sounds very Pimmy, but I didn't know which one of them it was. Like, I didn't think it was Hank Pym at all.
Right.
But
I was
it
just
felt
like,
very Pym Tech, so
mm-hmm.
that kind of like put it on the radar for me at that point.
Yeah, yeah. So it was actually cool to see. So that scene is basically pulled from the Incredible Hulk, the Ed Norton version. Although Mark Ruffalo voices Bruce Banner, so that was a bit of a head trip. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
I've watched the Incredible Hulk, quite a few times and everything, and the animation actually looked like Liv Tyler. I don't think she voiced her
that's
though.
right. I forgot who played her in the movie. It's Liv Tyler.
Yeah, because the first one it was Jennifer Connelly and Eric Bana, and then the second one was Ed Norton and Liv Tyler. And I actually liked her Betty Ross. She's very soft spoken because Liv Tyler she has like that kind of soft baby voice, but she's tough.
Yeah.
So I kind of like that contradiction. So and so when Betty is trying to get her the hell out of there. So after she tells her, I think it's some sort of nanotechnology, and she was like, okay, I helped you. I don't, I'm a biologist. I don't know anything about forensics or whatever. You're on your own. So it's kind of like she's trying to rush Natasha out,
and then the lab.
Yeah, and then Natasha sees on the desk there's a jacket and a hat for a pizza delivery person. And so she's like, are you moonlighting? Are you delivering pizzas as an extra job? And then Betty's like, and then unfortunately that's when Natasha gets the call from Nick to tell her that Clint, that Hawkeye, has been murdered or he's died. So even in this universe, Natasha and Clint do have a friendship,
right,
or some sort of relationship, because he was like, I know how much he meant to you. And I love what she says. She doesn't even cry. She was like, tell me who I have to kill. And I was like, yep, that's Black Widow. That is her. And then it hits the fan.
Yes. Yes. So that's when we get the split battles between Coulson, driving in the desert, and then the Bifrost beaming down. And we find out that Loki has come down with basically like the armies of Asgard and the Warriors 3 and everybody with him. And then simultaneously at the college, Ross pulls up with, all the military to try to get Banner.
Yeah. I love that. I love the splice of those two scenes together because it really amped up the tension. I thought that was really cool. Listen. This Loki just as arrogant as ever.
Yes.
And his came with his same stock speech about ruling the world, and Nick was like, and then Nick Fury's phone is ringing because I think was it Natasha that was trying to call him, right?
Natasha called him, yeah.
And he was like, and then he keeps trying to give his speech, and the phone keeps ringing, and then he gets annoyed, and he looks at Nick, and he was like, "Are you gonna get that?" He's like, "I got a world to conquer. Hurry up!" But yeah, I really like the splicing of those two scenes together, and so back on the Hulk side of the story, Natasha tries to help Betty and Bruce escape, but it's too late. Somebody shoots Bruce. You see General Ross. Somebody shoots Bruce. He wasn't supposed to do that. And of course, that's when he turns into the Hulk. And Natasha was like, let me get the hell out of here. Because remember, they were on that bridge. And she just flew out. She was like, I know better than that. And then the Hulk just comes out and he starts his rampage. And then all of a sudden, we just see him stop. And then he basically starts blowing up. Like, you see the Hulk, like, inflating like a balloon, like, from the inside. And he literally explodes.
Yeah, that was wild.
Wow. I was like, okay. which was funny because just a few minutes before that, Bruce had told Natasha, well, I can't die, right? Yeah. Or it's hard to kill me or something like that. And clearly somebody found the key to doing that. And so that was just like, and I have to tell you that watching this episode, I mean, of course, what if it's in an alternate universe? It really made me it was kind of eye-opening to know that a certain member of the Avengers could wipe all of them out, and it is the least likely member ever.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I would have never thought of that, Robert. Like, if
people
you told me, hey,
always underestimate that power set. And I'm like, that power set is like so, like, especially since he can go like subatomic. Like, you can do
Yes.
so many things inside of people's bodies, you know?
Right. Right. I mean, listen. There's no spoilers here. We know who the murderer is, right? But I will say that this same person who had the same technology, while not the same character, but had the same technology, was actually a key element to defeating Thanos, right? In
Right.
Endgame.
Yeah.
That is really when we got to see, and when he went meta in Civil War. So there's two instances that kind of hinted at, like what you said, how powerful this technology is and how deadly it could be to the Avengers.
And
I would have never thought that.
and he doesn't even have, full command of the technology like Hank Pym does. He's the one that created it,
Oh, yeah.
so
Yeah. That's true. I was just like, wow. So okay, so we're down 4 Avengers, 4 little Indians. So now we're moving to the next day, and Natasha. We find Natasha in this library late at night, and she's basically doing research, and she basically cajoles Coulson into giving her the password into the Shield database, and it was some crazy password. What was it?
It was like Steve loves Steve and his date of birth, I think. So it was like July 4th, whatever.
So even in this universe, Coulson has a boy crush on Captain America. Some things never change. I just thought that was pretty cool. So we see Natasha crack into the Shield Initiative, and then she's looking at the files, and she was like, wait, hold on, something weird is going on. And in the meantime, she keeps looking back over her shoulder because she looks back behind her, and it's super dark, but she hears something. And then finally, when she starts putting 2 and 2 together, she gets up, and all of a sudden you just see her getting hit. But we don't even know what it is. It's just something. We just see her on the floor, and then that's when we see it's this little, and we're like, oh, it's Ant-Man? Oh, my God. And you just see, like, whoever it is in that suit is just taking Natasha to town. And then just before things get really dangerous, she's able to call Nick Fury, and she leaves him a message. She gets his voicemail, and she was like, Nick, it's hope. It has to do with hope. It's all connected to hope. And then we see Natasha get dragged into the darkness, and I was like, oh my God, y'all gonna make me watch Black Widow die again. I hate y'all. I hate y'all so much. I really was hoping that she would be the last one standing, but that was not to be. And so, and just before that, in that confrontation between Nick Fury and Loki makes a deal with Nick, and he was like, I'm going to give you until the next sundown in order for you to find out who killed my brother, because that's supposedly why Loki is there with the armies. He's there to avenge his brother's death. But I'm like, come on now, Loki, you didn't even like him like that. But anyway, so I think Nick has maybe like 4 or 5 hours or something. So now Natasha's gone. He's trying to figure out, like, under this deadline, Coulson's like, we don't have a lot of time left. And then we see Nick go into his car, and he pulls out a very familiar piece of technology. What does he pull out, Robert?
He pulls out the pager for Captain Marvel. The pager,
yeah. So then that scene is from Infinity War, the ending of Infinity War, right? Yeah. So then he goes, and then Nick basically decides to find out or close this case. Now that he has enough clues, he figures out, or I think he has a suspicion of who the murderer might be. So the next scene, we see him by the San Francisco Bridge. There's a graveyard, and the grave is for Janet. Who is it? Janet Van Dyne.
It's for Hope Van Dyne.
Hope Van Dyne. Yeah. Thank you. Who we know from Ant-Man and Ant-Man and the Wasp, right? Who's the Wasp? And then we hear a very familiar voice. Whoops! Yeah, it's Michael Douglas as Hank Pym, and is that the Yellow Jacket?
Yeah, that was the other thing I loved about this, because whenever in the comic books, whenever he's like become gone more, I guess, to the bad side of things on the Avengers, is whenever he changes from his Ant-Man costume to his Yellow Jacket costume.
Wow. So then in this reality, he is Yellow Jacket.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. And so why, so you can tell us what was his motivation? So he confronts Nick Fury, and why is he Yellowjacking? Why is he so upset?
Well, he's upset because I guess both Janet and Hope both died as SHIELD agents. So he's kind of taking it out on Fury. And since since Fury doesn't have any kids or anything like that, I guess the Avengers initiative is like his kid, the plan of all plans that he's come up with. And he wants to take that out, basically, to make him feel the way he's feeling about losing his daughter and his wife.
I was like, wow. It just shows you like how easily hate can grow into somebody, and how vengeance can turn so ugly in somebody. Because I mean, in the other, if we're talking about the MCU timeline, he did lose his wife, right? And then his daughter was still there. So there was a little bitterness. I mean, Hank definitely had a certain bitterness towards SHIELD, but he wasn't like that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like he still had a moral compass, so to speak. And in this one, it was just like out the door. I mean, losing your daughter and which is kind of shades of Wanda, right? In WandaVision.
It is.
And how grief can just make you toxic as hell. And he just killed these people, these innocent people that didn't have anything to do with anything. It was like you said, he was just using it to hurt Nick. And then something really interesting happens. They get into a fight, and Nick is kicking his ass. Like you see him as Yellowjacket turn tiny. He's flying towards Nick, and Nick punches him. And I was like, wait, hold on. And then he's just doing backflips and ninja kicks, and even Hank is like, wait, you're spry for a guy behind the desk. And then the fight just turns insane, and then all of a sudden he's like flying in the air, he's multiplying himself, and I'm like, wait, he's multiplying? I was like, oh, we know who this is, and of course it's Loki. Loki was there all the time, pretending to be Nick to help him take down Hank, and so he's defeated. And then towards the end, this was so funny. So we have two endings, right? Two conclusions. The one conclusion we see the next day, because Loki says to Nick that I'm thinking about extending my vacation down here. And Nick is like, for how long? And then the next scene turns to the United Nations, and you see Loki in front of all the world leaders basically saying, oh, yeah, I talked to all the world leaders. I am now your master and commander, and you must be subjugated. His usual Loki BS, right? And then that's spliced with the ending scene of Nick and Coulson in a hangar and you see basically the coffins of the fallen Avengers. You see their respective symbols on top of the coffins. That hit.
Yeah, that hit pretty hard. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I was like, damn. But what I like about that episode is that it definitely ends on a hopeful note, because much like he said in the speech, I mean, the Avengers are not, and this is pretty much speaking to what's going to happen in Phase 4, right? Because most of those OGs, right, that were featured in this episode are now gone from the MCU, right? And so I'm sure a lot of fans were feeling like, okay, well, these were our world mightiest heroes for Phase 1 to 3. Who do we got? So when I see Nick walking out of that hangar, that tells me he's about to go get the new crop.
Yeah.
Which is kind of symbolic of what we're going to see, with Shang-Chi and the Eternals and Kamala Khan, and, hopefully we get a live action Miles Morales and, the upcoming Spider-Man movie. So that was cool. And so what did you think of the ending? What did you think of that one?
The Nick Fury ending?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like he leaves the hangar, and then
that was pretty cool. I was wondering what was going to happen with Cap, since they didn't show him during the rest of the episode. So I was like, I guess he didn't get to the point where they had thawed him yet. And we see that like he's still on the ice at this point when Fury gets him. But then, when he's looking at the ice, he's like, welcome back, Cap. And then Captain Marvel's behind him. That was pretty cool right there.
I love that.
I mean, I would love to see Cap Captain America and Captain Marvel together, that would be pretty cool.
I think so too. Yeah. I for the voiceover of It's Only One Line, it's not Brie Larson. It is actually Alexandra Daniels that plays Carol Danvers, but she sounded like her. I was like, oh hey.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like that ending. So I think, and I mean, we've talked about this. I think what Kevin Feige, I just want to get in his brain sometimes. Because I'm like, you're just smart. Because what Kevin Feige is really doing is he's really preparing fans, us, right? Like he's priming us, like, hey, this was phase 1, 2, and 3. Phase 4 is about to be bananas, bananas right now. And so with WandaVision, to an extent, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Loki, especially Loki, and like these series are priming us for the introduction of like this wider, more expansive universe, which is about to turn into a multiverse, as we're going to experience, like it was hinted at the end of Loki, and we're definitely going to see it in what was that? The new Spider-Man movie? What's the title? No Way Home. Listen, we'll need to talk about that trailer. I'm going to do this one real quick. But yeah, it was just like, so I think what Kevin Feige is doing, and what I think has been so exciting about this is like they're kind of challenging a lot of the characters that we saw in phase 1 to 3. There's been a deconstruction of some of them, right? We see a deconstruction of Wanda. We saw a deconstruction of Loki, and to an extent Bucky, and you know what I mean. And so it's like the characters that are remaining is sort of like there's a closer examination, and the ones that are gone, we're kind of there are questions, right? Like kind of questions about their legacy. What does that mean? That was a major theme of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, right? It was like, what does Steve Rogers' legacy mean? What does the legacy of Captain America mean? And what's the good in it and what's the bad in it? You know what I mean? So I like that. You know, it wasn't a perfect show, but I kind of like the idea that they were playing with this idea of supremacy, and you know what I mean? I was just like, all right, and racism, and how is the world really ready for a Black Captain America? And what does being a Black Captain America mean, right? Yeah, and so it's just sort of like, I like this. I'm excited. I'll admit, I'll tell you, after Endgame, I was like, I don't know, phase 4, we don't have Tony, we don't have Steve, like what are we gonna do? And Kevin was like, yeah, I'm gonna kill your darlings, okay? So to speak, and I'm gonna be giving you like different superheroes, you know, and we know with the multiverse, it is definitely the conduit for them to bring in Deadpool and X-Men and Fantastic Four, the other properties that weren't under the MCU umbrella, but now they're able to do that. They'll be able to do that.
And you're right. So, it's this series is like the perfect series to get people primed to be ready for new things, but also to be ready for slightly changed things about the stuff they already know. You know, you have all these possibilities, everything from little tiny changes to completely new characters and everything in between. And this show gets everybody ready for that.
I totally agree with that. Like when I think about the ending of episode 3, right? When he says, "Welcome back, Captain," it's Captain Marvel, right? And then also with episode 1 with Captain Carter, what they're talking about is female leadership, which we have not had, you know, in phase 1 to 3. And also I'm going to add Valentina in there, Madam Hydra. And so that really excites me, like with phase 4 and with the Eternal, we're seeing more powerful women. We're really seeing women step up in the
leaders
MCU.
of the Eternals, it looks like. So.
Yes. You know what I mean? I mean, and I will say that Black Panther to me had the strongest voice of female leadership. Like that was that strong whisper of things to come. And so I'm just like I'm really excited. I'm like, okay. And then I love the cosmic factor, and you know, we're seeing the Watcher. I'm pretty sure we're going to see the Watcher in the live version, right? Like the live version movies. They better keep Jeffrey White. Okay?
They got to.
He is perfect. I just love his. Sometimes I'll just rewind the intro just to hear him. Like I'll just rewind it. Like just even the intro, like the montage, I just love that. And just his voice, it's so soothing. But I did want to ask you a question because you're way more observant than me. But I caught this and I wanted to know if maybe this was in other episodes or if this was just in this episode. I noticed there were at least 2 to 3 instances in episode 3 where we saw the Watcher in the background, in the horizon.
This is
did you see that?
They've kind of like progressively been showing him more. Like the first episode, I don't think they showed him at all. But in episode 2, we did see him at least once. When the Mandela, when the ship took off from the planet, and then
that's where he was.
Yeah, and it flew into space. Wow. You saw him like up in the stars. You saw like his face there. But in this episode, we saw him what, 2 times, 3 times?
Yeah. So you know what this reminds me of? It kind of reminds me of Invincible. Follow me. Remember every episode of the Invincible when it was like the title card? With each episode it got progressively bloodier. Like the episode 1 it had a few dots of blood, and then episode 2 it was like sploosh, and then by the time the season finale you couldn't even read Invincible.
That's exactly what it feels like. Yeah.
So I have a feeling like what we're going to see is as these episodes progress, where it's almost like the Watcher is going to be bleeding through, right?
Yeah.
Which tells me that I think that I could be wrong, I think by the season finale, we might see the Watcher having a more direct presence, right? Because remember, he always has the disclaimer. He was like, I just observe, I don't change anything. But I don't believe that.
That would, you know what? That would not surprise me because that's kind of how it's always been in the comics. Like the few times that he has interacted with people, it's because something like major is happening. So I wonder if that means like the very last episode, if he shows up, it's going to be like almost like a catastrophic event or, like a major world event.
Which will... we'll see that reflected in the live version of Phase 4. So, I like this episode. I mean, it was good. Yeah. If I had to grade it, I'd give it like a 7 or an 8. The T'Challa Star-Lord one was like 9.
Yeah.
and the Captain Carter one is like 10. It's like 10's on okay. Like I tell you, Robert, I watched those 2 episodes repeatedly during the week because they're so good. Yeah, I mean, and it's because you were tweeting about the animated aspects of Captain Carter, and now when I watch it, I'm thinking about your tweets and like the scene where she's in the sky and she's flying and then the weight and the this, and I was like, yeah,
that montage
this is
amazing.
Good editing.
It's so
it
amazing.
Really is. It's so good. I can't believe wasn't there somebody who wrote a review saying that it was the weakest? It was like a weak. And I was like, which episode were you watching? I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Like, I loved it. And it just made me feel like we need yes, Anthony Mackie is the Black Captain America, but my goodness, please, give us a woman Captain America. This needs to happen.
Yeah, I mean, let's not act like there's only one person with the super soldier serum in the Marvel Universe.
Right.
So that would not be, new. It wouldn't be brand new to do that.
Listen, I just had a crazy idea. Maybe because I was just smoking, but that's another story. Wouldn't it be crazy if our woman Captain America, if they somehow resuscitated Carly from Falcon and the Winter Soldier?
Oh, wow.
Just a thought. Just throwing it out there.
It's a comic, so it could definitely happen.
You know what I mean? Because Sam was really close to her and stuff, so I was just like, that would be kind of a reverse. And correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, this is just in the comic books. I don't know how we could ever get into the live action version because I don't know if we'd have to do time travel. If I remember correctly, in the comic books, Luke Cage and Jessica, who is it? Jessica, oh my God.
Who's Spider-Woman?
She's the, no.
You're talking about, okay. Jessica Jones.
Yes, I remember that in the comics, someone had told me that in an alternate future, Luke Cage and Jessica Jones's daughter, Danielle Cage, becomes Captain America. So she's got a fro. I gotta find it. I saw it. It was like
I know she becomes
like one of
something.
the,
I didn't know if it was. I didn't know that it was Captain America. But yeah, that would not surprise me.
Yeah. But they canceled both series, so it's like we may not get that reality, or they might resuscitate it. I mean, because now they have the rights, right? Because they took it back from Netflix or whatever. So we may see Luke Cage and Misty Knight. I would love to see them. I mean, I like the actors that they cast. But I wouldn't be against a recast if they recast somebody. I mean, I'll be honest with you. The actor who played Luke Cage in the Netflix series, what is his name? Mike Coulter. Yeah. Now, while physically he looked like Luke Cage, I didn't feel like he really sat in that role. Right. You know what I mean? Because here's the thing about Mike Coulter. Because you were like, oh, Mike Coulter can't act. I'm like, no, because they were watching Luke Cage. I'm like, it's not that he can't act. It's just the role wasn't fit for him. You know what I'm saying? Because I was introduced to Mike Coulter on The Good Wife.
Oh, yeah.
And you remember that? And he played this mobster called Lamont Bishop. Baby, he was a scary ass motherfucker. I was like, oh my God. Because in the show, he killed his wife.
Wow.
He found out his wife was cheating on him or something like that, and he had her murdered. And he was like, and what? In front of his lawyers, he was like, you can't, this is, client, lawyer confidentiality. You can't turn me in. He was cold-blooded. He was terrifying.
Wow.
Okay? So I really liked him in that. And he's actually in this other show. It's on Paramount Plus. And you can catch the first season on Netflix. It's called Evil.
Oh, I've heard of this.
It's such a great show. Oh, you gotta watch it. It is like, it's kind of like, I would explain it like, it would sort of be like the X-Files from the Vatican.
Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah, so basically Mike Coulter he's a priest in training, and every episode they're called, somebody, a parishioner or somebody, it's either an exorcism or some sort of supernatural happening, and so he's the man of faith, and they pair him with a psychologist who's basically like the Scully, right? Like if you think of Mike Coulter's priest character as Mulder, and then she's Scully, and so basically they're trying to figure out in each of these cases, is it supernatural? Is it a prank? Is it something that could be explained? And Mike Coulter is very good in that role.
I'll have to check that
out.
So
I think he's better in very complicated roles. Like he's not good in the goody roles. Like I kind of like Denzel. I was like, Denzel is best when he plays conflicted characters. And so he's really, really good in that show. And so but I also say, I mean, hopefully, if they bring back Luke Cage, they'll probably cast somebody else or whatever. And also quick, this is what I was gonna say. This is what made me sad, because I know Mike Coulter can play such great complicated characters. That's why it made me sad that there was not a third season of Luke Cage, because I wanted to see Big Boss Luke.
Me too.
Because remember how season 2 ended, right?
Yeah, when he has all the suit and he started the club back up and everything. Yeah, I wanted to see that season 2.
And he shaded Misty so bad. Like she was like, oh, so I know you changed because you just lied to my face. And then Misty was like, so that was setting up the rivalry now, right? Because she's a cop and now he's. And then who else came back? Rosario Dawson's character.
The night nurse.
She was the nurse. Night nurse. Yeah, and she saw him and she was like, oh, I got to get out of here. She didn't even try to meet him because she already saw the transformation. So I was really sad that we never got to get a third season of Luke Cage, because I think that could have been really good.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that to see it. Yeah. So, so I thought it was a good episode. The last few minutes, I did want to talk about the trailer for No Way Home. The third Spider-Man movie is coming out. I believe it's coming out in theaters on December 17th. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes? What did you think of the trailer?
It was a good trailer. So here's the interesting thing. Like,
okay.
I was like monitoring Twitter and everything, and everybody is going crazy. And I love Tom Holland as Spider-Man. But like this trailer just didn't like get me like super, because here's the thing. I'm not a big like I'm not one of those nostalgic people for Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man 2 and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm not one of those people that like reveres those films. Like when I look at them now, I think they're pretty bad, except for 2. Like I like 2.
Oh, 2
I
is
do
great.
not like the first Spider-Man, and
uh,
I do not like the third Spider-Man at all.
We don't talk about the third Spider-Man here. We don't talk about that. We don't talk about Jazz Hand Spidey. We don't talk about that. No, I agree with you. No, the second one out of that first trilogy, the Tobey Maguire trilogy, the Spider-Man 2 is the standout. It is everything. It's the distillation of everything that Peter Parker and Spider-Man
But I do not like Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man. I just don't.
I agree with that. You see, that's been sort of the thing. Like, so this is our third iteration of the Spider-Man franchise, right? So we had the Tobey Maguire run. Then we had the remake. What was it? It was Amazing Spider-Man, and that was with Andrew Garfield. So here's the thing about Andrew Garfield. I think he was a wonderful Spider. I think he was a really good Peter Parker. Some people didn't like the emo slant, but I was like, whatever, let him cook. I was like, I liked Andrew Garfield very much as Peter Parker, and also as Peter Parker, and especially as Spider-Man. What I liked about his Spider-Man is that he, to me, out of all, he really nailed like the one-liners and like the jokes, because it almost had like a New York edge to it. Like it almost had like a Woody Allen-ish feel to it. You know what I mean? So I really appreciated that. The problem is that Andrew Garfield is a great actor. It was just the material that he was given, especially for that second one with Electro, with Jamie Foxx. It was awful. Oh, it was so awful. I was like, wow. And so Andrew Garfield was like, goodbye, I'm going to go do some real acting. And so now we have Tom Holland, and I agree with you. I love Tom Holland because he is, like, he has all the qualities that you like about Peter Parker.
I think he's a good Spider-Man and a good Peter Parker.
Yes, and you have to me, it's sort of like, I call it the Batman syndrome, right? Like when you cast an actor, they have to be equally good. They have to equally tackle their, civilian identity and also their superhero identity, right? And with Batman, all the actors that we've had for Batman have been good at one or the other, but not really both. You know what I'm saying? So it's sort of like, okay, let's look. The Michael Keaton one. He was cool. Like I thought he was okay as Bruce Wayne. I didn't really buy him as a playboy, but I liked his Batman.
Yeah, I agree.
I did. Val Kilmer. Yeah. I don't really have a comment. George Clooney. Terrible. Terrible Bruce Wayne and terrible Batman. I was like, bro.
I think Bale's the best one.
I think so too. I think Bale. The only thing with Bale is like I didn't quite as a playboy. Because the thing with Christian Bale is that he's such a specific actor. He has like a very specific energy. So casting him as a romantic lead, you'll notice that he doesn't do a lot of romantic dramas or comedies, and I think there's a reason for that. Not knocking his acting ability, but I think you need to have a certain, chemistry with your female co-stars and stuff, and he doesn't really do that. He's much better in edgy roles. Although now we know that Christian Bale is part of the MCU, right? Like, who is he playing? He's playing the God Killer.
Yeah, I forget the character's name, but
yeah, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, I like Tom Holland as Spider-Man. Now, I liked Homecoming. I thought it was super cute. I was like, this is a good way to reintroduce the franchise. I thought it was really cool. Far From Home, well, okay, I'll tell you what I didn't like about it. Far From Home, it had too much of this John Hughes 80s. It was more like European Vacation featuring Spider-Man. And I was like, okay, sir. I was like, listen, if you're making a movie about New York teenagers, when did the movie come out? 2019?
Sounds right.
Right, yeah. You need to go talk to some kids, okay? Because I was just like, number one, some of these kids look way too old to be in high school. Number two, the soundtrack and the music that these kids were listening to, I'm like, kids don't listen to that. I have teenage nephews, and I'm like, do y'all listen to this music? They were like, hell no. You know what I mean? The movie that, to me, did a much better job of depicting a New York teenager was Into the Spider-Verse. They knocked that out the park. Number one, the soundtrack was effing fire, okay? Because I went to watch it with my nephew. He's like 13 at the time. while we were watching, he was singing all the songs. I'm like, how do you know this song? He was like, Auntie Becky, everybody knows that song. He knew Sunflower. He knew all the songs, and even the ones that he didn't know, he added them to his playlist.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, and even when they played the old school hip hop, like Black Sheep, that was easily explained by the fact that his uncle Aaron was like a graffiti artist and a hip hop. So Miles felt like a very truly realized New York teenager to me, and so I just need this live action Spider-Man to do that. Like, go talk to the children, okay? Go see what's in their playlist and go see what they're wearing. Because also the costume, like the design, like what the kids were wearing. I'm like, teenagers don't wear that. I don't understand what's going on here. But that's my opinion. But you go ahead.
I'm just gonna say that I think the trailer was solid. I feel like it was just like a bunch of stuff thrown at us. Like it was just like yeah. So like maybe when they do the next trailer with the story beats and stuff like that, I like that more. But this one was just like a lot of special effects and Doctor Strange and all that stuff. So it was good. It was all right. What did you think of it?
Yeah, I mean it was all right. I mean I think for me it was like we're coming out of a pandemic, so I'm happy to see anybody from the MC. But I was like, I don't want to be like fast, right? I don't want to be that like just going for anything. I was just like, I was like, okay, it's cool. I was like, all right, I see what's happening because remember what at the end he was revealed to be Spider-Man. And so we're seeing the fallout from that. So what is interesting, really quick, I just want to talk about this quick, is one of the fan theories that is going on because the storyline that we're understanding from this movie is that somehow now because Peter has been revealed as Spider-Man, the lives of his loved ones are getting very complicated and very messy. So then he goes to Doctor Strange to ask for some sort of spell to erase what, like the past few days or whatever when he killed Mysterio, all of that. And Doctor Strange is like, oh, sure, okay. And people are like, why would you be like doing a summoning spell to actually basically undoing the timeline when you just came from Infinity War? You know what happens when you mess with time. And why would you be at the whims of some 17-year-old kid? So then the theory is that somebody posted a picture. It was a picture of Strange by the fireplace with a mug, and then they put another picture from a comic book of Mephisto standing by. So the theory is that is not really Strange, that is Mephisto, which we've heard about Mephisto before. There was a Mephisto theory, right? Everybody thought that Agatha was in WandaVision. Now, I think this one might be the one. What do you think?
I think it's a possibility. I don't think that's Strange in the trailer. I just don't think he would be that, like, he's an asshole and he's like overconfident, but I just don't think, Peter asking him to do that. I don't think he would just go do that. And the other thing I was thinking that, Marvel, like half the stuff in these trailers is lie or never shows up. So, so I'm starting to think that like maybe they edited it so you think it's Doctor Strange, but I think that might be from a part of the movie where Doctor Strange is being taken out by somebody and somebody's acting like him. So it could be Mephisto, could be.
Yeah, I like that. Or is it possible that it could be a Skrull?
Well, I mean, he's doing the spell though, so.
Yeah, because they can imitate what you look like, but not really your powers,
so
right?
The Mephisto thing would be more believable, but
they really want Mephisto, I tell you. They really want this man. Yeah, so there's definitely a questioning of Strange, agreeing to do the spell from a teenager. It's just like, which we know is going to bring the multiverse, and of course, the last shot we see is Alfred Molina, who's back as Dr. Octopus. And from what I read, because I think CinemaCon is going on this week, they showed footage, and people are saying that they saw Tobey Maguire.
Yeah, that wouldn't be surprising to see all of them.
Yeah, so they're doing. So the idea is that they're trying to do their version. The MCU is trying to do their version of not only the multiverse, but they want to tackle Into the Spider-Verse. So the rumor is that Andrew Garfield is supposed to be coming back. Although when Andrew Garfield did an interview, he was asked this constantly. I forgot which movie he was promoting, and they were like, "Is he going to be back?" But I noticed he didn't say no. All he said was, "I didn't get the call." That's what he said, and I was like, just because he didn't get the call didn't mean his management didn't get the call.
Exactly.
Like he could be playing semantics. You know what I mean? So unless I hear a very enthusiastic no, I am not in this movie, I think Andrew Garfield might come back. I mean, I know he had some bad blood, but that was Sony. Because remember, when he was doing the Spider-Man movies, his beef was more with Sony. If he came back, it would really be working with Kevin Feige and the Marvel people, and probably more money. You know, I think Feige might have had a way to talk to him to be like, hey, you know, maybe you should come back. You know what I'm saying? So, I like me personally, like to see like Tom Holland, Tobey Maguire, and Andrew Garfield, you know, all on the scene would be cool. Also, I'm about to show my age here. I'm googling this. Okay, do you remember that CBS had a Spider-Man series?
Live action?
Remember that? Yes.
I do not remember this.
Yes, I'm gonna send it to. I'm gonna put it in the notes, but it came out it was called The Amazing Spider-Man. It came out in 1977.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and the actor who played Peter Parker / Spider-Man was named Nicholas Hammond. The show didn't last that long. It only lasted for like one season, I think. Well, no, like 2 seasons or whatever. But the funny thing is, like, I watched it, and the actor who played him actually looked like a live action version of Peter Parker. He had like the really pretty curly brown hair, and he was like a photographer. And I forgot who played J.J. Jameson or whatever. But I thought it would be cool if they could get him. Right, because he is technically a Spider-Man, right? I would love to see him. I don't know if he showed up. I'd have to see if he showed up in the Sam Raimi movies. I don't think he did. I'm pretty sure he did not. But yeah, he's like the forgotten Spider-Man. Like, yeah, like people forget that. Like while we are getting these Marvel Life series, like, you know, WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, like Marvel has had a presence, at least on the television side. Because remember the Incredible Hulk with Bill Bixby, which
I used to watch that show like
that
crazy.
Is such an let me tell you, I was like, listen. Now that we know that Marvel technically does not, or I should say, Disney does not technically have the rights of the Hulk. They can use him in movies, but they cannot do like standalone Hulk movies because if I remember correctly, Universal still has the rights.
They kind of just give them the ability to use them.
Right, you know what I mean? So I was like, if y'all wanted to do like a Hulk series, if it's not a movie, I always look to that one because I love the take that that was of that live action series. It was more like a psychological drama. It was really cool. I mean, like, of course you see the Hulk at the end, you see Lou Ferrigno and, you know, whatever. I mean, the CGI was not all that great back then, so it was very limited. So because they knew that they couldn't use the Hulk that much and they didn't have the CGI, what it forced them to do was really build on character development, which I loved. And so remember his rivalry with Jack McGee, the reporter who was after him. And no, that was, I think he used to come on Saturday night. You couldn't tell me nothing. I would do all my chores, get my Sunday clothes ready, because that was my show. My mother used to watch it with me too. Oh, and the ending with that piano, like da na na na, when he would have to leave.
When he had to hitchhike to the next city.
Yes, and my mother was sick of me because I would cry at the end of. She was like, Rebecca, you know how this is going to end, but I was like, but it's so sad. She was like, I'm going to have to stop watching this show with you. You really need to get it together. So I think I could be wrong, but I think you can find the original Hulk live action series from the 1970s.
I'm pretty sure you
it was on Netflix the last time. Yes, I would highly suggest that people watch it because it's really good. So you know what I mean. But really, Marvel just was failing on the movie side. DC was flourishing with the Superman movies and then the Batman movies. Marvel couldn't quite get it together. And really, the first movie, and I don't care. I always tell people, y'all gotta give y'all flowers to Wesley Snipes and Blade. That's all of that. Everything that we see all started with that. While he may not be part of the MCU, it proved that Marvel can make a compelling live action movie. Right? Not it wasn't Kevin Feige, but I'm just saying, as far as like a Marvel property, I was like, yeah, I was like, all right, I think so. And so I think Blade came out. There was like 1998, right? The first one. And then the second one, and then when did we get the first Iron Man movie came out around what? 2008, 10 years later, you know what I mean? So yeah, but yeah, this is all to say that it'll be interesting to see how they're going to tackle the multiverse and how they're going to tackle Into the Spider-Verse. They've got a high bar to reach because the animated movie is perfection. Really is. Perfection. Like, I watched that movie and I was like, I can't find anything wrong with it. Nothing. Like, I look and I'm like, storyline, like the motivate. I'm like, like that movie is unfuckable-ish. Like, you can't fuck with it. Like, you cannot fuck with Into the Spider-Verse. Everything about it is perfect. And so Kevin Feige and them definitely have their work cut out for them. I'm not saying they can't achieve it. It'll just be different. You know what I mean? So it'll be interesting. But the fact that they're getting these Spider-Mans or Peter Parkers together, it'll be interesting to see like the take on that. But alrighty, well, thank you again, Robert, for joining me. We'll be back next week. We will be reviewing episode 4 of What If. It'll be interesting to see what this one is about. Like, actually, to be honest with you, I'm not looking. I like to be surprised to see like what the new episode is. But yeah, we'll be back next week to review that. And Robert, we can find you on Twitter. What is your handle?
Robert C. Young.
Yay! And you, of course, you can find me at filmfatale_NYC. And if you have any comments or thoughts, you can tag both of us and use the hashtag #VSpectrumLounge. We'll see you next week. See you on the other side.